Good afternoon, my loved ones. I'm here with Doris's Daily Devotional, and also I'm going to read chapter 2 of my book, Cracks in the Potter's Clay, How I Overcame Bipolar 1 with Faith. And in Spanish, grietas en la arcilla del alfarero como superé bipolar uno con fe. All right, Doris's Daily Devotional. Exodus chapter 12, verses 17 and 23. 17. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread, because it was on this very day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. 23. Excuse me. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and the sides of the door frame, and will pass over that doorway, and he will not permit the destroyer to enter your house and strike you down. Footnote: Passover and the festival of unleavened bread became an annual remembrance of how God delivered the Hebrews from Egypt. Each year, the people would pause to remember the day when the destroyer, God's angel of death, passed over their homes. They gave thanks to God for saving them from death and bringing them out of a land of slavery and sin. Believers today have experienced a day of deliverance as well, the day we were delivered from spiritual death and slavery to sin. The Lord's Supper is our Passover remembrance of our new life and freedom from sin. The next time struggles and trials come, remember how God has delivered you in the past and focus on his promise of new life with him. And also from Doris, good morning. To God be the glory for another brand new day. Jesus Christ redeemed us by death on the cross. Lots of love to you all. Okay, chapter 2, The Cracks. April 4th, 1995, 11:59 p.m. Adrienne was lucky to have this balcony outside of her bedroom. It was so quiet that night. The sky was very dark, making the moon hiding behind the tree branches look extra white. As usual, it felt like I was the only one awake in the world. A song from one of the plays Mommy directed at the Arena Players came to my mind, and I started singing it. Moon outside my window, shining down on me. I don't want you to see how lonely I can be. I lit up another cigarette using the embers from the one that I had just finished. Forgive me for smoking, Lord. Please don't let me get lung cancer. I remembered looking at my watch and thinking to myself, God is going to take her home on my birthday. I finished smoking and got in the bed and went to sleep. 1 Samuel 3:7-8. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. And the Lord called Samuel again the third time. And he arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child. I was awakened by the phone at 4:10 a.m. It was Dr. Eisner. I'm sorry to tell you that your mother passed away at 4:05 this morning. It was my 29th birthday. 4:05. I called Douglas, but could not form the words to say it. I was crying. He said, I'm on my way. I felt that he loved me on that day. I was priority this time, not the Air Force. He drove from Hampton, Virginia in record time. It was usually a 4-hour trip, and he arrived in a little more than 3 hours. He loved and respected my mother also. We were separated, but we still cared about each other enough to have a good relationship for the children's sake. We both love our children. I am so glad that I came home when my mother invited me back home. There are 10 months that I got to spend with my mother that I would not have had if I had not moved back home. She so enjoys spending time with her grandchildren, Joshua 8 and Christina 6. We attended several of her one-woman shows through young audiences of Maryland. She taught and sang about African American history as a griot. She even incorporated some of the songs that she used to sing to me and my sister and I while growing up. Children loved my mother's performances, and so did I. I never grew tired of watching my mother perform. She passed 25 years ago. Now it's 30 years? Yep, 30 years. Now that I know God's voice, I know that it was Him trying to prepare me by telling me in advance that my beautiful, kind, loving, brilliant, and talented mother, Reverend Dr. Joan Rebecca Corsi, age 59, was going to die on my birthday, April 5th, 1995. They say that the onset of bipolar could be the result of a traumatic event. I used to think I became bipolar after my mother died on my birthday. I really could not grieve. I had 2 young children that I was raising alone, and I had to be strong for them. My sister, on the other hand, would call me while she was sprawled out on her kitchen floor screaming to the top of her lungs. I cried at times, but most of the time I pushed it down for my children's sake so that I could focus on them. For several years after she passed, I would have manic episodes in the months preceding both her birthday and my birthday. The first 3 years, I made big plans for my birthday so that I would not focus on the great loss. The first year, I went on a Sun Princess cruise where my uncle, Terry Johnson of the original Flamingos, was performing with my Aunt Teresa. The second year, I was in a relationship with a famous actor, Ben Vereen, from the movie Roots by Alex Haley. Funny how my mother and I both dated men that were in that movie. She dated Fiddler and I dated Chicken George. The third year, I got married to a man that I barely knew that turned out to be abusive. That marriage only lasted 1 month. The fourth year, I got in a serious relationship with my now third ex-husband, Andre. In hindsight, I can see how my subconscious mind was at work. I married my second husband in a black miniskirt suit on the anniversary of the date that we buried my mother, which was April 10th. I noticed it when I came across my mother's obituary some months later. It was the first year after my mother passed that I first heard his voice. It was March, and I had put an $800 deposit down to go study Spanish abroad in Mexico. It was a dream of mine to study abroad ever since I was in college on work study, and a professor was bragging about one of her students winning a Fulbright Hayes scholarship to study abroad. It sounded so exciting. I was a first-year provisional Spanish teacher and had never been to a Hispanic country. The French teachers that I worked with had gone to France, and the Spanish teachers had gone to Spain or other Hispanic countries. I felt I was not as good as they were because I had never studied abroad. This night, I was studying for a Spanish culture class exam. It was around 12 midnight. Joshua and Christina were asleep, and I was reading a story in Spanish when I heard a voice say, "Don't leave your kids." It startled me because I was reading in Spanish and I heard the voice in English. It seemed too strange for me to deal with, so I ignored it and went back to reading in Spanish. I then heard it again, but louder. "Don't leave your kids." Okay, time for a cigarette. This is how I dealt with stress back then. I went out on the back porch and lit up a Newport 100 and began to think about what had just happened. I said to myself, don't leave your kids. Why not? Suddenly, different scenarios began to run through my mind. What if something happened to one of them while I was in Mexico? I would not be able to be there to comfort them right away. What if something happened to me while I was in Mexico? Their father was living 4 hours away in Hampton, Virginia. I was planning to leave them for 8 weeks in the summer with my cousin Edith, who does not drive. However, she was a master at public transportation, and I know she would have taken good care of them. Up to that point in their lives, I was always the one who took care of them, who took them to the doctors, cared for them when they were sick, and who drove them everywhere. I took them everywhere with me, like my mother took my sister and I everywhere with her. Joshua and Christina had never had a babysitter or went to child care. Like me, they only visited my two Aunt Ruths. My mother's sister Ruth, she had a mole on her nose, and my mother's Aunt Ruth, she did not have a mole on her nose. Whenever one of them would call the house, we would say, it's Aunt Ruth with the mole on her nose, or it's Aunt Ruth with no mole on her nose. My mother took me and my sister Adrian everywhere with her, and I gladly took my children everywhere with me. The only time my children and I were ever separated until they were adults was when they stayed with my cousin Edith and great Aunt Ruth with no mole on her nose during my last 4 weeks of college. Living in the shelter, working part-time, taking a full load in college, and caring for the children alone had gotten too much for me. Thanks to cousin Edith and Aunt Ruth with no mole on her nose, taking care of my children those 4 weeks, I graduated from Christopher Newport University with departmental honors, earning a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Studio Art with a 3.57 GPA in 1994. I graduated from college exactly 10 years after I graduated from high school. It's never too late to finish your education. I did not major in Spanish, but I absolutely loved the language. Since I had extra scholarship money, I took extra courses in Spanish. I practiced my Spanish while I was working at the NCO club whenever I recognized a Hispanic accent. What I loved was that every Hispanic that I practiced with encouraged me and told me that my Spanish was good. Encouragement has always been important in my life. After my mother's death in 1995, I had begun to take Joshua and Christina to visit their father in Hampton, Virginia, and grandmother in Stony Creek, Virginia. Someone must have been watching our house because my house was broken into while we were away. We came back to find items stacked by the windows as if someone were passing items out of the window to another person. When the police arrived, they said that it looked like whoever it had been left in a hurry. They did not take anything. I believe my mother or guardian angel scared them away. My cousin Charles said that he felt a presence in my house after my mother passed. A friend of Andre and I, named Ivy, said that he saw a woman in a white dress out of the corner of his eye while sitting in the den watching TV. He said it freaked him out. The fact that someone had broken into the house did alarm me. I decided to sign the three of us up for karate. I imagined we would be like the three ninjas and could together defeat anyone that broke into the house. It also gave us something positive to focus on while we were grieving. We attended Joe Palazzo's Kempo Karate School, and that is where I met my third husband, Andre. He was an amazing martial artist and teacher to me and the kids. He was so encouraging. Once we started competing, he would coach me and lead me to victory. He would tell me, Allison, you can beat her. Axe kick her on the head. I have high kicks because of my dance background. I did what he told me to do and won all of my matches. We all had a ball traveling and competing in tournaments. Andre really loves Joshua and Christina, and they love him too. They scared me so badly one day. The karate studio was in a shopping center with many stores. After practice, I went to change out of my gi, and when I came out of the dressing room, Joshua and Christina were nowhere to be found. I panicked. I always knew where my children were. I looked throughout the school and had just taken off running down the steps to the outside when these three jokers came walking through the door, smiling and laughing. I was furious because he took my children to the store to buy them something without asking me first. I yelled at all three of them, grabbed Joshua and Christina by the arms, and left. I eventually cooled off and we returned to karate. We continued to study Kempo and began moving up in belts. Andre and some of his karate friends branched out on their own to open their own karate studio called 5 Point Kempo Karate. We followed them to three different locations. Andre and I and the kids enjoyed each other's company so much that we decided to get married in June of 1999. Andre was doing everything to impress me while we were dating. He used to come to my hairdressers every week and pay to get my hair done and would take us out to eat a lot. He was spoiling me. I recall telling him that if he was not going to keep this up after we got married, to please stop then. I told him that I would not take it well if he changed after we got married. He said things would get even better. Unfortunately, as soon as we got married, his behavior changed. I reminded him of our conversation when I told him that I would divorce him if he changed negatively. I was very frustrated, and my behavior demonstrated my displeasure. I would cuss and I would fuss, but to no avail. At one time, I thought about leaving because Andre and the kids were getting along wonderfully. I was the only one unhappy. I did not leave because we were living in the home that my mother left my sister and I. I brought my sister out with inheritance money our mother left us. You see, living in a shelter for a year gave me the desire to have my own home. Being a Christian, I often reflected on my behavior. I would feel ashamed and would go to Andre and apologize. I was feeling out of control. I was extremely disappointed at how things changed after we got married. The spoiling stopped. I tried to force him to treat me the way I wanted him to. I yelled, I cursed, and I withheld sex. Nothing worked. It only made me feel bad about myself. One Sunday, while at Christian Life Church, I heard a sermon being marred in the potter's hands. It touched my heart. I went to the altar for prayer. While I was at the altar, I heard a voice say, "Something is wrong with you." The next day, I went to Andre's primary care doctor, Dr. Siegel. I disclosed my feelings about Andre to him, and he said that he thought I was bipolar. I was not expecting that response. I was talking about Andre. How did it get turned around on me? Nonetheless, all is on. That is my name. I went to him for help. I wanted to improve the quality of my life. I was optimistic and relentless in seeking happiness. Dr. Siegel referred me to a psychiatrist, and I began taking medication at the end of 1999. The medicine, or shall I say, my belief in the medicine, appeared to be helping after a few weeks. Over the months and years, when the stress of marriage became too difficult, I would go to the doctor and have him change or increase my medicine. The medicines that I took over the years were Depakote, Celexa, Wellbutrin, Vraylar, Lamictal, Lithium, Trazodone, and Topamax for migraines. I also took Pravastatin for borderline cholesterol for many years. I took psychotropic drugs for 20 years. I have been free from all drugs, including the Pravastatin, for over a year, now over 6 years. It's January 31st, 2021 that I am writing this. Okay. I am presently awaiting my daughter's feedback of growing up with a mother who was bipolar. My son's greatest complaint is that I did not allow him to express himself. He said that it was my way or the highway. He also regrets the times that I spanked him with a belt across the behind. I have explained to him that I intentionally spanked them occasionally for bad behavior while growing up because I was not disciplined enough as a child and it was miserable being spoiled. When things did not go your way, you behave badly. The Bible also says in Proverbs 13:24, whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them. New International Version. He also just shared with me a few minutes ago that through his upbringing, he inherited the victim mindset. Wow, that was deep and so true. There were other personal things that my son expressed to me during this conversation that were difficult to hear, but I walk in the truth now. I did not run from anything. I owned and acknowledged everything he said. He did not know it, but I was crying as he was saying his goodbye and thanking me for listening. He is a gracious and great orator. Joshua expresses himself eloquently. He has written hundreds of rap songs and made a CD with his cousin Stephen in 2009. I was his number one fan. He is incredibly talented. I feel he will write a book one day and is going to be a bestseller. I am praying for strength that when my daughter gets back to me with feedback, it will be just as productive. Since I am in a self-reflective mindset, I decided to call my ex-husband, Andre, and see if he wanted to share anything helpful about living with a wife with bipolar 1. He was busy, but the one sentence he did share with me was impactful. He asked me, I asked him if he ever really understood my symptoms and could he distinguish them from my regular personality. He said, I knew when it was full blown because you were either not doing anything or doing too much. We never used to discuss my symptoms. This is my first time feeling that he understood. I would be so depressed at times and I would just sleep or lay in the bed and not eat. Other times I was cleaning the house from top to bottom and able to out eat everyone, including him. I know the cleaning sprees had an adverse reaction on Joshua, Christina, and Andre. I would start cleaning and couldn't stop. I would become tired, and instead of just stopping, I would become angry that no one was helping me. I would sometimes make the kids stop whatever they were doing, including sleeping, and make them help me. I would also start verbally attacking Andre and try to get him to help too. I remember the three of them whispering to each other about me, and I remember feeling that I should just leave. The three of them got along fine together. Remember, I stated that bipolar 1 people have a lot of energy and require little sleep. Well, the mind keeps the body going, but the body is still under stress and responds. For me, it will respond aggressively with yelling and more aggressive behavior. I am sure that although I did not spank my kids a lot, most of the times that I did, I was angry. Joshua reminded me today that I did not explain in detail why he was being punished. I sucked at explaining why in detail. Oh, how I wish I knew better. My mentor Les Brown often says if people knew better, they would do better. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I wanted to love everyone. Now I know better. Suicidal thoughts and wanting to die. I was voluntarily hospitalized for inpatient stays 3 times and 1 outpatient stay. I weaned myself off of all but one medicine during the outpatient 2-week stay. I recall when I first was admitted for abruptly stopping my mood stabilizer. I had suicidal thoughts. I was sitting on the first row in church and I saw a huge knife in my hands pointed toward my stomach. I saw myself thrusted into my stomach. It scared me and upset me so badly that I got up and ran out of the church. My children followed me. I went to Cousin Nita's house for consolation. My children and Andre followed me there. I thought it best to go to the hospital. Once in the hospital and checked into my room after they took away my shoestrings, belt, and mirror from my purse, I found myself choking myself. I screamed for someone to help me. It turns out that the medicine that I was taking had suicidal thoughts as a side effect. I was The most recent times that I wanted to be dead was because of lack of communication with my children and one of my sisters. Someone close to my children told them a lie about me. I know this because my son indicated to me that he thought what I did was messed up. When I asked him what I did, he told me it was a bold-faced lie. I had done the opposite of what was told to him. I spent an entire afternoon Googling ways to kill myself. I even called my insurance company to find out if my life insurance policy would pay if it was suicide. I was suicidal, but I was not inconsiderate. I did not want Andre to come home and find that I had hung myself or in the tub drowned. I read how most times when you take pills, they end up pumping your stomach and you wake up feeling horrible. I thought about having an accident, but worried that I might just mess myself up and live. I had convinced myself that God would understand if I killed myself. I realize now that it was an attack from Satan. God wants us to have life and to have it more abundantly. That is the conclusion of chapter 2 of my book. May God bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you, give you peace in Jesus' name. Amen.